Today is Yud Beis B'Tamas Tashin Samech Tes. Yud Beis Iyar. Yud Beis Iyar Tashin Samech Tes, and we're on page Chuf Tes of Chuf Tes of Hemshech Samech Tes of the Redditor shop.
Alright, so we saw that despite the fact that the Eibishter, how he is mitzad Madregas Das Elyoy, it's not really shaykh Cholila Shum Tfisa Smokim on the part of the Nevroim, that they're not Klau Tefis Smokim Magabi Madregas Zu, and therefore it's not shaykh L'choira A'inim from Pagam. And the whole Pagam V'Ovin being Poil or Poigim B'Klau all the day the Nevroim is only in the Inim from Das Takta, as we saw. However, we saw the Chiddush here in this drush that it is shy to say a certain Inyan of Pagam even in Das Elyoin, even though it's not bedimian the two in Yonim, because the Pagam of Chet V'Oven in Das Taktain is Mamisha, direct Pagam. And we saw that that's a union of Kaviochel. What it causes a niche and a whole Kaviochel in the Kelim and Snimshech, the Chitanium, V'chulu. However, Lamaila, it's very, in Das Elyoin, it's very difficult to say that. And as in the Hemshech of the Moshel that we saw, the Moshel Nifla with the Rabbi Bor, we also saw that that it's not shy to say that in the Das Arochav and Arav that there's really any Tfisa Smokim to the Kashya Alidei the Chochem Achen, or in the Etzem Seichel, how it is in the Seichel Harochav from the Arav, then it's not shy Chlal Ayinim from the Stira or Kushia. And we saw BMS even in the Das Takta, even in the Seichel Anim Teitzel Talmud, the Seichel HaKotzer, the emes is that the kasha there is not an emes kasha, and it's not really nagir the kasha there either. And be'lamayla that's the inyan from Avaya Velkim Kulachat. So we have to understand what is the inyan, as we said at the end of the last year. What sort of a pagam is it, Gabi Das Elyoin, if it's not really Nogea Klau, the Indian from pagam? So how do we say that it is? Nonetheless, Poigem, in the Indian from Das Elyoin. So we saw that in the Moshel and in the Moshel, Rebbe was Mataret since Sof Kosor. Rav, if we take it in the Moshel, in his Seichel Harochov, he's Yodeya mi ha-Seichel HaKotzer, he knows, and he's aware of the Seichel HaKotzer which he gave out to the Talmud, and even in that's in Tuefan, that it was anyway Kol inside his Seichel HaKotzer at the beginning, and when the way he gives it out, albeit in an open from Efsher Litois by Esher to give a Mokim Latoas, to ask a Kashya of a Sokosov, he gives it forth, and he's aware, he has a knowledge of that Seichel Kotzer, even though that knowledge of the Seichel Kotzer is not poil any Shinui or any Inyan Klau in his Seichel Harochov, and therefore the Kashya is not really a Kashya to the way it is in the Seichel Harochov of the Rav. So therefore, we have to understand if that's the case, then what is it shayach to say be'emes the inyan from a pagam in Das Elyoin, and what does it mean that mitzad the fact that he's yodeya that Seichel HaKotzer, or in the Nimshul he's yodeya Das Taktain, that gives it kilo the possibility of being poigim, even though you say mitzad acher it's not poigim. It can't possibly be poigim in a zamadrega where nothing has any tvisas mokim. B'frat the Nivroim v'kol ma'aseim ain't tvisas mokim. So we answered that yesterday, Beklolis, at the end of the class. Just another couple of words about that, due to the fact that it is a Indian omik, even to the point that the Alter Rebbe brings in that Maimah in Pasha Vayera, we saw he brings the Lashon that the Mirov Dachis HaInyan Maskil Yuchel Lahovin V'chulu. So we have to be misbeinen. What does it mean that the Eibishter knows, or that the Chacham or the Chacham Godel, the Rav, knows of that Inyan Kota that he gave forth? So we see that the Inyan from Yediyah has in itself two Inyanim. On the one hand, we can say when you are Yodea something, well, that means it's an addition to your, what you might call your storehouse. Up until then you didn't know. Now the day what you use your seichel and you use your observation, then you come to know a certain inyan, and that becomes added into your Matthias, which you didn't have previously, and that's the inyan from Yediyah. The close inyan of Yediyah, what we talk about it in Onim Sichliim, well, that's the way it works. And therefore we say that the things that the great authors write are called Chidushei Torah. In other words, that they're Mechadish Inyanim that other people may not have noticed or may not have come to be Yodeya in that sugya or that inyan or whatever it happens to be dealing with. That's one inyan in Yediyah, and that's in Bas Taktoin, or that Pshat is also called the Kaviyochu. Things come to be known by the fact that the oil is mitzumtzum. Lafi akelim and lafi seidish taushulus, then there's a kilo tefisas mokim that inyan wasn't yadua, and now it is kaviyohu. The Eibster allows it as if now he does know. And that's the closest inyan of Yediyah, how it is by us and the way we understand Yediyah. In other words, a toisefes in your Matthias alidei ezeseich. But there's another inyan in Yediyah. And the inyan in Yediyah means that you are aware of something, or that gives it a certain Matthias legabecha. In other words, that if you didn't pay attention to that inyan klal, then it wouldn't have any Matthias by you. Or but the fact that you allow it to have some sort of a significance in your awareness, then it gains by you a certain place. And let's forget about whether you knew about it before or whether you didn't, or beneget your havona in seichel. Or the very fact that you're aware of something being there, well, that gives it a certain, as you might call, recognition on your part, and therefore you can't say that it has absolutely no reference to you whatsoever, even though it may not be of any great significance to you, boys or husband. And you might say, well, that has nothing to do with me. I just happen to know that kach v'kach is there. But it's the fact that you say you know that it's there gives it a certain place or a certain Matthias that it didn't have prior to that. So we have to say that that's what we mean when we say that in the Das Arocho, the Rav, he knows that Seichel HaKotzov, the Pshat knows in his Yediyah as normal idea, he knew from before. I mean, he had it kol b'teicha ha-Seichel HaRochav Shaloi, yesh mo b'teich mosayim mona, that if you have 200, you automatically have 100. In that even of Yediyah ain't lo shum inyan b'zeh. Ella, what do we say? He knows about it. That it tells that he's aware that he gave forth that inyan to the Talmud, and he has a word by actually giving that a certain recognition al yodei, that he did give that to the Talmud. Well, that gives it a certain place, even though it doesn't really have any place be'emes etzloi, because yesh b'klau mosayim mana. That's what we have to say to the very Tsuma slave Kaviyocho on the part of the Rav, that he did have and he did give such a seichel to the Talmud, and that gives it a certain place, it gives it a certain recognition in his eyes that it didn't necessarily have mitzad etzera. The same thing Lamaila, we could say that the Eibishter knows everything, and mitzad atzmusay, he knows it without anything being added to his Matthias. Kemavur in Shara Yichud V'Amunah, Barika, the Eibush just knows everything, and that's the expression that he talks about there in Torah, and that Maimah, the Alter Rebbe, Galui V'Yah, Dua Lefanecha, everything is just known. In the past passive, the Galui V'Yah Dua, Ein Shum Chodesh Etzlecha, right, that you just know everything, and the Alter Rebbe says he knows that b'yediyah shalei michutz mimeno, no, b'yediyah satzmusa kaviyahu, the way he knows himself, he knows all the nifroim v'chuli v'chuli. If that's the case, and the Eibush is the embassy in from Ein Seif, and the embassy in from Blig Vov, and the embassy in from Peshitas, then everything that he knows, it just doesn't really have any existence, and it doesn't really help us that he knows it. So therefore we have to say that there is a certain aspect in that inyan what the Eibishter knows, those inyanim, that he deliberately gives that a certain play. And that's what we call Hashgacha Prati. In other words, that Hashgacha Prati is, as the Mavur taught in Perek Zayin over there in Shara and Perek Vav, in Shara Yichud V'Amunah, or the Hashgacha Prati is, comes from the fact that the Eibishter knows everything, but he allows himself, as it were, to be aware of it in such a way that it becomes of some significance, how those things will move and how they will be shayt to his whole kavanah, and how prat shiva prat to shayt lekavonosai. In the fact, is that mitad echad, in that same yediyah, those things have absolutely no position. They're bottled, be'etzim ha'matziyah, they have cold place, klalum, mitad the etzim fact that he knows them. Because he knows mitzad atzmusay. And yet on the other hand, the fact that he does know them, he inside that knowing them, the Eibishter uses the concept of yediyah, meaning giving them a certain place. And that's what we discussed at the end of the shir yesterday. That's the unbelievable gift in the whole creation, that the Eibishter made the mensch what he's not. In other words, that the mensch is nothing. He's absolute corny. How do you say he's bottled with Matthias, he's iron whatever, and the famous statement has it, the Rishonim of Chassidus, that he's a soup plate of bones, and they called bones and shtikla flesh, and soup and nochazol, das is Amen. That's what he is. That's maybe saying it in a complimentary way. And yet, nonetheless, that plate of bones and soup and shtikla flesh and oidin on him, or the Eibishter knows that in such a way that even though his yediyah itself is mevatel completely, and they have no matziyas, inside that yediyah he does give them a matziyas. By the fact that he knows them, ozen oten lehem eishishu inyan of Matthias. In other words, the fact that he does recognize that they're there, Kaviyachol, even though in that same recognition he doesn't recognize that they're there, that gives them a certain place, and therefore that's called Hashgacha Pratius. Therefore, Kaviyachol, he pays careful attention to everything they do, just like somebody who's very important to you, pay very careful attention to Al-Swasatut. And that's the Indian of Chaviv Adam, what Rabbi Akiva says in Pirkei Avos. Well, we learned in last week's Pirkei Avos, last week's Pirkei Avos, that Rabbi Akiva says that Chaviv Adam, that the mensch is very dear to the Eibishter. Why does it take his dear with that bottle? But you tell me bittul b'matzias, he just doesn't exist. What does it take Chaviv Adam? No, there's a special trick that happens inside that unbelievable concept called yediyah. The very fact that you allow yourself to know that and to recognize that that is there, that gives it an unbelievable significance that mitzad etzem mitzmusa it doesn't really have. And the same with the Rav, or that seichel kotzar that has no place for him whatsoever. He understands ein oret yoter harbe. That's like a brief statement that has almost no significance by him. That somebody can ask a kasha on it. And if it doesn't have any place by the Rav, but that's in fact that he gave that to the Makabel, and he wants the Makabel should use that. Pirush hu yudeh mizeh. Shnei advarim biyachad. Hu yudeh shezeh ein lezeh kol erech. Or mitzad hasheni, he wants it to have a certain Well, that's what causes the whole ability. If something, if a spanner falls into the works out there, then that kaviyoho reflects back to the Rav some way or another. There's more error in him that, the whole thing didn't, kaviyoho fulfill his kavanah, because he didn't want Mizorim Fadrei and a kop, mitzaiti kakashia. That was certainly not the kavanah. And if that's what we have to say, and that's the biur hadova. The devil, they can be like a certain Helen Vester, the feel of Gavidas earlier in a pagam. And we learned yesterday the word pagam means that the thing's not able to function in the oifen that it's really meant, alpi kavona immediate. That's not how it's meant to function. Well, that's the from pagimas sakin. That the sakin ashchita can't be used, it can't cut the way the Torah intends it to, but even go, because therefore it's like a fault and a niche in its even of Beulah. The same thing, but again, to Da'as Elyon, the ultimate tachlis is mitzat Da'as Elyon that should be more nigre koid havaya, or ro kol bosa. It should be gila mamish atzon seid seifler lamata, and that's what should really be happening already a long time ago. Why is it not happening? Because there's a sinian of drei lamata which can be mailim umastir afila lagavitat in and afila lagavitas elyon, but that pagam can somehow or another be poigim, and it doesn't allow atzma ain't safe to carry out its function. Dainu to be begolila lamata. That's yesh lema. That's the biur bador. And the far we find in the famous Maimah in Del Mitzvah, in the Maimah Amir, the Mitzvah Mira, the Rebbe over there, the Alter Rebbe says it in the Kuti Torah, Bekitza Yisa, that's a whole unit with the Orla. The Orla is absolutely nothing. The Orla is a door, Tommy of the Angels, they call Eric, like Gabi Atzm Selakus, with the ganze Inyan. With the unit from the Atzmias of a Nefshel Kis of a Yid, that doesn't have any Eric, Klau. Of a Dafki, because it doesn't have any Eric, and it's a door Stusi almost. Or it can be Milam or Master, like Gabi, a very, very high Dragon, it can prevent the Inyan from Gila Elakus. And if I miyad, would they take away the Ola, the Alter brings in Shulchan Aruch, that's the beginning of the Knesses, Nefesh Elokis, B'tei Gufa, but once you remove that ridiculous thing that's in the way, then automatically the Kedusha begins to spread and to enter, as he brings down there right at the beginning of the Madura Basa, the Alter Rebbe. And Mamela Yesh Lema, those are the biur from that whole Inyan. And ever said the Rebbe, that's Inyan, al Pizei Yuvan, Mashu Kosovo, Anoichi, who Moicha Pishoecha Lema Mani, and we brought that down from Yeshaya Novi. Those are the pasuk that the Maimah began with, and it's a pasuk in Perik Mem Gimel, not to be confused with the pasuk which is a half Torah in Shashaytim, but dort steht Anoichi, Selaman. It's a slightly different lashon. Dort steht Anoichi Moiche Pesha Elcha, that I literally wipe out, or I erase your deliberate sins. Anoichi Moiche Pesha Peshoecha Lamani, for my sake. Pirush Lamani. What does it mean? Why does it have to say for my own sake? Are you looking in the Maimah? It's I don't like people sitting like drawing room meeting type of stuff. You sit and you look in the Sefer and Kuli Haiva Ulai, the Eivse V'Tov and the Epis V'Tover. You Mashu Kosov Anoichi Hu Meicha Peshoecha Lema'ani. Pirush Lema'ani. What does it mean that I'll wipe out your sins for my own sake? So, Lema'ani Hu B'chinas Da'as Elyon. Shehu B'chinas Ha'oyer HaMe'eli Atzmai. Well, that's Kaviyohel, the Oyer Ha'atzmi, how it is by the Eibishter himself. Wasn't pshattered by the Eibishter himself. L'mayla adayin me'agilu ela oelamas. It's l'mayla from being even a mocker to the gilui ela oelamas. Okamesh kosa b'medrash rabba shehivdi lo'ela atzmei chulu okamesh kosa b'mokem Kamoish Kosu B'Mokim Acher. What's going on, the pure on that Indian that's brought down, that there was, it's written at the beginning of the creation that there was the Iyar that was Meir. Misof ha'olam v'yad, Tzeifa v'chulu, the Eib said, Iyar, you could see with it, almost without end. Well, that was the Iyar that was made at the beginning of the creation, evenly after the creation. Well, that was the Inyafanika Shechina, but Aktoini Moyasa with the whole Richa. And then it's written, that on the Yom HaSheni, it's written, Vayavdel, Shem Bein HaOyer, Vayavdel Elokim, Bein HaOyer, or Bein HaChoshech. So that's Mavur. And the Medrash that Bein HaOyer, or Bein HaChoshech doesn't just mean simply that the Abish is differentiated between what was light and what was. I think that's a bit strong, I don't think, no?
Yeah.
It's the only way it can be made a bit weaker, maybe.
Lower the fan.
I don't necessarily mean it has to be turned off, but it's somehow or another it's affecting me. Either I cough or I sneeze when I know that's my way of knowing that some cold is affecting me. So it's written that Vayavdel Elokim Bein HaOyer Bein HaChoshech. So it says the Medrash that doesn't mean that he was just Mavdil between Oyer and Choshech. What it means is that in Oyer Gufa, there's also a certain trace of Choshech, and therefore the angel was Yavdil Bein HaOyer or Bein HaChoshech, and in Oyer Gufa he was Mavdil Bein that Oyer which is Mamish Oyer, in the full sense, Oyer Achmi, and that Oyer which is also Shad to Choshech. What sort of Oyer Shad to Choshech? Or the Oyer which is Shad to the Olam, Kemoshehu Achshav, that's a Oyer which is Meir in the Olam, and it's Mavur dot in the Medrash. So that's also a form of Choshech, like Abida, the Abish, because it was only Meir after he'd been Mavdil the Oyer godly. And that's what Rashi brings, that he saw that the oil wasn't Kidai lo oilam lishtamish boy, and therefore he was gone le tzadikim liyosid loved, that the whole inyan of the original oil he kept for himself, and that's what's written in the Medrash. Hivdili la Achme, he kept the Emerson oil for himself, or that oil which has got some shaykhs to the oilamas, which is really a getter of Choshech. In a sense, or that he gave as a mocker to the Oilamas, over the Emerson Oyer Achmi, which is beyond the mocker to the Oilamas, or that he was Mavdil Oyer Achmi. So you have to be careful not to get that confused, because the Medrash learns that on the Posik, Vayavdel Elokim Bein Oyer Bein HaChoshech.
Here the Or HaAtzmi that we're talking about, is that the Or HaAtzmi, is that connected to Dasalion?
Yeah, not connected. That is the Inya from Dasalion. Yeah. And Mamela says the Rebbe, that was the year that he was Mavdili, the Indian that he was Mavdili Achmei, V'liyoshen Ogeya HaPagam, Gam B'chinas Dasalion. That since the Indian of Pagam, according to the way we've been Masbir, that even Gabi Dasalion it can be Poigam, Alze Oma, Moicha Pesha, I'm going to wipe out literally even the deliberate sins, the Peshoim Lamani, Hainu Lamana Madrega Sheli Achmei Adayin, Lamani, even for that Etzema, which is beyond any mocker to the Olamas, and it's moved dull and separated off only for the Eibishter, even there's a certain Pagam mitzad the Peshoim, and therefore, he says that even that I'm going to have to wipe out, even the level of Lamani, I'm also going to have to, as it were, wipe out the Peshoim. And like we say on Yom Kippur, in reference to the Kriyas HaTorah, which was last week's Parsha, we say, B'negeh Yom Kippur, v'chiper ala kodesh. Mitu mois b'nei Ruel, well, it's written that the Kohen Gadol, going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he was mechaper al ha-kodesh. Now, it's well known that the word Kodesh is different than the word Kodesh, because the word Kodesh is a relative term meaning something which is moved out from other inyanim. But kodesh is called in the Lashon of the Zohar Kodesh, kedusha begarmei, that's a inyan that had to call havdalah on its own right, havdalah be'atzmai. But therefore the word kodesh is the inyan of madrega kodesh umuv dal. In other words, it's kodesh, but it's not just stam kodesh, it's kodesh umuv dal. And that's what it's mavur, becoming mekamis in the Zohar Kodesh. The word kodesh means etzem HaKedusha shelamayla mia oilamaz. And therefore we see that on Yom Kippur, that's what we're talking about here. Now, Noicha, the Moicha Pshor is big, talking about that's a pasuk we bring in the Tefillah, as we pointed out when we started the Maimah, that's put down in the Tefillah of Yom Kippurim. The Kohen Gadol also has to be mechaper. He has to, as it were, bring a kapara and a tikkun, even in the madrega of kodesh, even in the level which is kodesh muvdal li atzmai. Ubichdei lamalis hapagam de b'chinas das elyoin. He said, and in order to be mamale the pagam of das elyoin, zeu m'b'chinas onoichi. Well, that you can only do from the level, you can only be mamale the pagam in that level, only from anoichi. Hainu b'chinas pnimius v'atzmus elyoin seif, shelamayla m'b'chinas das elyoin. The mishom nimshak lamalis kol hapagami. So we see that what does he mean with that? That if you want to be mechaper on something, in other words, you want to be metakin, a pagam in a certain level, then we have a klal that ein chovush matir esatzmi mi beis ha'asurim. That somebody is already locked up in Rachmanin a lockup or a jail or ka'etz, he can't get himself out. There has to be a koyach alien which comes and gets him out. So since the inyan for koides, well, that's the inyan of the oyer amud liatzmoi, or that has been nivgam, that's das alien, that's been nivgam also alidei the pishoyim shalamata. Then if we want to be mechapa on that, we're going to go even higher than that. You've got to have a koyach higher than koidish itself in order to be mechaper al koidish. The hainu, you've got to have a koyach which is even l'mayla midas elyoin, l'mayla mi'achilas or l'mayla mi'achilas. You got to have a koyach l'mayla midas elyoin. The Rebbe said, in order to be mamala the pagam which reaches into the inyan from das elyoin, into the which is kodesh muvdal, you're going to have to go even higher than that light which is kodesh muvdal, in order to be matakin, because that's a klal that every pagam can only be nishmale alidei madrega shelamayla mi'efa sheyesh ata pagam. And therefore we have to say that comes from two levels of anoichi. It's not enough one anoichi, but you have to have two levels in anoichi. I know, b'chinas pnimis ve'atzmus ein seif shelamayla mib'chinas das ele. The mishom nimshach lamalas kol hapagam. Lefi zeh it follows that on Yom Kippur the Kohen Gadol has to reach into the level of twice anoichi, not just one time anoichi, but twice anoichi. Because one time anoichi, that's only the inyan from the das elyon, that's the inyan from the am nuvdul gamri mi'a'ilma. That's one on. Anoichi is the inyan from havdalah. Oh, but that's only one time havdalah. That's only in the etzem, how it's moved from the ilmas. Oh, but if you say that in that there can only be a pagam, then how are you going to fix that? You have to go into pnimis v'atzmi, saying safe how is l'mayla even from the level of das elyon. In other words, mamish in the atzma saying safe, and that's anoichi, anoichi, not an anoichi, afilu l'mayla mi anoichi hazeh. That's what he teaches now. He said, and zeh shekosev kan beis pomim anoichi. So we asked the Shaila, the Matan Torah was written one time anoichi, and Matan Torah was a gewaldige gillah, that's what saying safe. So why do you need here too? So he says, this because of a base palm. The Matan Torah nama palmachas anoichi. Why? The Matan Torah hoya gillah atzilas bebiyah on Iyar havaya al Har Sinai. that the Eibishter came down, Kaviochel Lamata, B'toicha Eilemes, or he came down from the level of Koidesh, what that is Atzila. Yeah, we saw that that's a union of Das Elin, the union of Atzila. And that was Nimshik Lamata into the Eilemes. Shazehu Gili Oirein Seif Mamish. That's a tremendous Gilui of Atzilus, which is Mamish Elakus, how it's moved from the element. Ki Atzilus hu Elakus Mamish. Pirush moved all the Gamri Mea elements. V'hoye Gili Atzilus Bibiyah. Shazeu Gili Oirein Seif Mamish. Ki Atzilus hu Elakus Mamish. V'hoye Gili Oirein Seif Mamish Lamata. V'al kol dibu udibu porchanish mosa. What abbreviation is, the all kol dibu as brought down in the Gemara, check the Shabbos, that on every dibur what I heard from the Eibishter, then porchanish, nishmasa, that the neshamas went out. In other words, the Gili was so great that the neshamas just couldn't take such a Gilui in the Olam HaGashmi, and therefore they just had porcha nishmasa, that they just flew out. And it's like, the spark being nimshach into the great flame, that they just weren't able to remain in a yichud of the neshama with the go. However, as he brings down in Tanya and Perek Lamed Vav, the Alter Rebbe, that the Eibishter gave him back to neshamas, betal Torah, she'osid levoy lahachli yitzesa, sameisim, that with the madrega of the tchiyas sameisim, the Alter Rebbe gave him back to him. But that's something similar to what we're talking about here, that he had to go higher than the first time on Oichi to make sure that the whole Indian would get back together the way it was meant to be. Neshama is the bria. Hey, b'chinas gvul canal. It's good neshamas how they've come down into Elam HaBria, even though they're shorishes and Elikus, but the way they come into Bria, they're already mugbalim. V'kasher Iyar Gilei Atzilas pocha nishmas. Once there was a Gilei of Etzem Elikus, was Meya in the neshama the way it is Kan Lamata, A'inim from Bligvul was Meya in Gvul, then the neshamas were just Poreach, were koifetz mi'aguf b'teich ha'gilui, like ha'nitzait is niklal in the avuka. Avu b'dei malis ha'pagam shebedas elyon, but in order to be mamal ha'pagam in das elyon, in other words, here we're talking about Atzilas was das elyon, and it came down, everything was, how do you might say, fine, even though it was a tremendous gilui, but everything was fine. Oh, but here in our Pasik, we're talking about what is Rahmani Nitzlan. There's been, as it were, a fault like every Matan Torah. Even though Matan Torah gave the whole way that everything should be, and it made it possible for there to give it the Anoichi Lamata, if Cholila, you do a pagam hilamata, then it's able to be mashtir even lagabi the madrega van atzilus and lamayla me atzilus, afila lagabi the inif and das elyoin mamish, and therefore we have to have shorik liyos am shocham mipchinas atzmus and save shelamayla me it's like the old cloud. The Kohei that everything works all right, then Kaviochel it works all right. Oh, but if there's a mess up in the middle, and there's a bilbul in the etchemin and kamoish tzorik liyot, then you have to get from a much higher madrega, and you have to bring from a madrega atzmi to put it all back into the seder again. And therefore, Kohei that everything was milmaila lamata, even from Matan Torah, and there was Gilei Atzilas lamata, and people were mekayim the Torah, then everything's fine. That's even from Anoichi Havayala Kelha. Then it goes through different madregas, the Gilei of Anoichi, Biz lamata mata. Or Beiftas, as they say, Kaviochel, a break, how they call it, a puncture. That occurs in Yonim that they shouldn't be. In Yonim, built Tirutuyim, that Gilo makes it impossible for the Gilei Pagam, meaning the idea of not being able to carry out a task properly. And the Inif and Atzilas is not able to be made, just like the Aura, for example, is like we saw. It doesn't mastir even like the highest madregas, Shalamayla me Atzilas, or then the only thing you can do is go even higher. Then you have to go into Pinimis Viachmias ain't say.
Is this only for a Pesha or also Chait?
Says,
is it only for a Pesha
Did it make problems in Das Elyon, or is it also a chait?
I understand what you're asking. Yeah, that's a good question. In other words, since the Pasuk uses the Lashon Pesha, then maybe it's only Peshoim that have described, but not weaker in inverted commas, Chatoim like Chet. But Chet is generally speaking a uniful Shoigig. You're right. Chet is an Ovein is like a middle point between Shoigig and absolute Mazid. It's a certain gather of Mazid. Pesha means a Mazid Kipshute. So you want to tell that maybe all in the Pagam is Mitad Moiche Peshoecha Davke. So we have to say that Henachanami, or the eminent power to be master ad Kach would be alidei the worst possible possibility. Yeah, the Hainu Pesha, that somebody or the Din when Nikshel in Yonim Chamurim, because we say that the Beis Hamikdash Harishoin was only destroyed because of Dvarim Chamurim. Yeah. And then we see that the Beis Hamikdash Hasheni was only destroyed because of a Dova which is much less noticeable, but Mavur B'chsidus in a way even more Chamur, but actually from Sinus China. So we have to say that it's a Kol Meduba Lefi Mishazeh. In other words, if we take the Nishamas of the Beinanim and the what you might call the Nishamas Peshutim, is that their ability to be mastir would probably be in the more serious in Yonim. I mean, the Gabi Daselim, Einachanami. But if we take people who are already involved in Avodas Hashem, then the Inef and Achet is also a serious matter. Because how did he come to a Chet that's Mavur, even though Dover Shel Sheigeg, Alidei HaIshgabras, of the Nefesh HaBamis. Not the fact that he gave way to his Nefesh HaBamis too much, that he probably wouldn't have come to even a Chet B'derech Shoigeg. And if we find that a Chet B'derech Choyte, B'derech Shoigeg needs a kapara, even Al Pi Nigla. The whole meaning of an Orei Miklat is only for Shoigegim, not for Mezidim. So we see that even somebody who was hurting B'Shoigeg, Gomo, he needs a kapara, and could be a long kapara. So we see that it all depends, Lafi Misha Hu. In other words, that the higher, more delicate you go, than even a Chet, can also be Malim or Mastir, B'tzura, and Ovin Vadai. So then we have to say it's totally a little bit in the Madregas and in the Dakas or Chamulas of the Inaligavi, those who are doing the sin. Can you understand what I'm saying? For example, the famous sin, what the Alter brings at the end of Perek Lamed in Tanya, the Alter says that a sin, a Talmud Chacham, somebody who's supposed to be a dogma, if he is quite, then it's got a certain chumrah, and the Yesh Vekronis and Amir Oret Vekait. You follow? It's totally lefi kol echad lefi madrigos. Aber Einachanami, the Mavur Khan is mitzad Peshoim. Yeah, Einachanami. Always a big day, Lamal is a pagam, Shevadat Elyon. You have to go to even higher, what that's the union of, the Erein Seishel Amayla Mia, Tzilas Mamish, in other words, meaning, Pshitas Ho, Ein Seik.
How can we say that? How can we say that Hashem is not affected by the world and that He doesn't, and that Ein Sof doesn't? It's completely separated from the world, that's the only way that it can be king. But it comes in.
How can we say it? I don't know how we can say it, but this is sicher that we have to say it. Because if the world affected the Eibster, then he couldn't have really created it in the way we claim that he created it. You understand? That the whole Indian for Yesh Mi'ayin implies that the Eibster is completely moved off from the Indian of the creation. And if we say that the whole Indian is Tefus mocking by him, then we're in some way or another we're Mamayat Shleimusay. Therefore, we have to say that mitzad the medius, the perfection of Ishlemus, then he's Lamayla Legami Mikol in Yoneh HaOilam and he's Modo and Betatlas. You follow? Otherwise, we get into all sorts of things just by definition that you can't say in other course. And therefore, we have to say Lamayla. Our problem is Not so much that he's Lamaila. I mean, that's a dover which is more or less moving in the Maimon, that he's completely Lamaila. The shaila is, how can you, since he's completely Lamaila, and the whole thing has no tfisas mokum by him, how can it be Taka Mailam Gabi him? You follow? That's the thing that we're being like. So we say that we are, in an indefinite way that was explained here, Barichas, then we are Mailim. So, Anoichi base Piomi, Vahainu Alidei Tshuva. Oh, that Shach is Davki to Tshuva. Matan Torah wasn't the from Tshuva. Matan Torah was not to Bali Tshuva. Matan Torah was to give him Davki to Tzadikim. Kamavu, they didn't want a Madrega, they just came out of Mitzrayim, and they just had all the tremendous Gilu Hanisim and all the Inonim that they had. And by the time they reached Mount Sinai, they were in a state of Achtas, Kulam Ki Ishechad, with the whole Rifes, and therefore they were in a Madrega from Tzadikim. Kachazem Avur. Obeli Achrei, by Luchus Shnias, they were already in a Madrega from Bali Teshuvah. So the Rebbe is Mavaya that wherever there's been like a break, and a mixture has occurred in the whole Kavanah, and we have to be Matakin Derek Tshuva, then we have to reach Onoichi Misha on Onoichi, we have to reach base Piomima Onoichi. So the Shaila is, how can the other possibly reach that high, even in a way that we say the Eibishter will let him? Of a sof, there has to be some form of error to the Indian. There must be some form of midah keneged midah or ezeshu moedim loy b'chol ha'inyan hazeh. If it's mitzad mamish atma sein tzeif l'mayla mikol hamadiz how is the mensch metakin that, and what's it going to help, and how does he reach a madrega of a noichi misha or noichi? So if you just say, well, the Eibishter just looks at it all and he says, well, there's nothing we can do with these guys, and the Eibishter does it himself, then that's kilo not what we know to be the case. The Eibishter wants that everything should come in the way of the Adam La Matas. Therefore, said the Eibishter, says the Rebbe, that the only way that can be, we can reach Anoichi, Misha Anoichi, Pa'amayim Anoichi, or that is through the Inyan Tshuva. Bali Tshuva, Mashchin Le, Bechele Yatir. That's one on it. Bali Tshuva, they draw him down with a much greater koyach. They call out of the Eibishter with a much greater koyach. Well, that's the Lashon of the Zohar Kodesh in Pasha Chai Sora. That's not far from the beginning of the Zohar Kodesh. There's a whole beer. But again to Bali Tshuva, they're oddly enough in Pasha Chai Sora. And there it uses the Lashon that Bali Tshuva draw the Eibishter. They literally pull him with a much greater strength. Bechela Yatir. Liyos da tshuva hu me'oimek upnimius hanefesh, or that comes from l'mayla me all the agbolas and all the giluim of the nefesh, harizeh ma'oira l'mayla b'chinas atzmas oirei tzei baruch. In other words, a true tshuva, the Eibishter allows it to reach up even in anoichi pa. In other words, even into mamish atzmas, so it's beyond all the limitations of the whole Inyan from Elamus and Nivroim. As a defar, once again, that l'chor doesn't have any error l'chor. You can tell what a mensch, what is a mensch l'gabi da? Yeah, the Eibishter, what is it, the famous beer which was brought down in Shorish Mitzvah Afila, in Arab Mitzvah, and also after that, it's Mavua become a Drushik Chassidus. We say about Hamte Hashem Rakel b'chol avavcha b'chol nafshecho b'chol miyay techa. So it's brought down. And miyoid means bli gvul. The word miyoid always takes away the limitation in something. You say, yeah, I've got much, but you say I've got very much. You take away the gvul. And if b'chol miyay techa means bli gvul. So you got to love the Eibishter, even from bli hagbolas and bli gvul klal. So everybody says how can a man possibly reach bli gvul, and how can he be mamshik milmaila keneged zeh am shocher? His bli gvul is absolute latonis legabi the Eibishter's bli gvul, and that's a touch. B'chol miyay decho. All we demand is your bli gvul. The Eibishter doesn't, he should match his bli gvul. That the Eibishter is quite well aware that nobody's ever going to match his bli What the Eibishter wants of you is your belief, what you can do, and then he will reckon at Kila you reached his belief. The same thing here. If he sees you do tshuva, Eibishter Seidus of Emes tshuva, and you want Emes Lamita Latakin, that's on him. So then the Eibishter reckons at Kila you reach that Madrega which is Lamaila from all the Hagbalas in Alakuz. And the day that you reached your Mi'oidecho, you reached your Lamaila. This is, and he called this a tapanili over the Eibishter. But you reached it and you did it. You gave your believable. Or that's Ma'ira, the believable Shalamaila. Or Kamesha Koso, L'cho, Omar Libi, Bakshu, Fonai. Pchinas, Pnimius, Holeiv. And the day there, Es Ponelcha, Havaya, Avakesh. That you will also literally search and demand the pnimius of the Eibishter. Panercha Havaya Avakeh. So it's one on the beer in that pasuk in Rashi that L'cho Omar Libi, that means that the Eibishter says in the shlichus of the lave of a mensch. And L'cho means through you, literally. We have a shlichuscha. In your shlichus, my heart says to me, Bakshu for nai, you must look for my pnimius. The Eibishter is talking to a Yid, and he says, you must look for my pnimius. In other words, Bakshu for nai. Or the heart says to the mensch, look for my pnimius, meaning the heart says, well, at least get my pnimius, and then, es ponercha havai avakesh, then I'll be able to request and expect that David will give his pnimius, he will give ponercha havai, he will give it down to my bakosha. So we see that Alidei, what you bring out the pnimius of your life, and you listen Kavayoho to the divine voice inside you, and you give what you can in your pnimius alev, then you have the right to ask that the Eibishter give you his pnimius meloshim ponim meloshim pnimius. Even though absolutely no error between the two pnimius, and of that pnimius that you give allows you to be mamshik the inyan of pnimius v'atzmas ein save. Yes.
How do we reach our pnimius? How do we reach our pnimius alev?
How are you going to pnimius?
How do we reach it? How do we reach our pnimius alev?
How do you reach a pnimius alev? Well, it doesn't work that the Eibishter is going to come and give you a toffee on a plate. You understand? You got to work hard. You got to shrey away, and you got to tumble, and you got to work at yourself, and you got to want to give what you can give, more than what you can give. Well, I was once by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said in the Fabrengen, the Rebbe said we have to do everything which is possible. And he said it in English. That's one of the few times the Rebbe actually used English in the middle of a Fabrengen. Then he smiled, and then he said, really what I mean, you have to give more than is possible. He said, in Yiddish, he said, the Emes is, medaf geben masach mehr, he said, medaf geben more than is possible. I said, in other words, you got to give more than is possible. You got to reach your own impossibility. So look, that doesn't go. Just how they call it. A knip with a finger doesn't make it happen. But on the other hand, if you really mean with the emes, then it can happen. You understand? It all depends on the lave. You understand? It's it's just from the heart. It's something that happens all in the heart. It's much higher even than what your brain can do for you. You got to want with the emes, and you want with emes, and you make an effort, and you do everything you can. When you tell you in the mikveh, I'll save you still helping. And one way or another, you get a touch of the pnimis alev. And believe me nowadays, that's what he's asking for. The matzah from my whole tears, mention on the shikoya, we can't demand anything more at all. And as the Rebbe said, Mamish in Toshin Beis. After what's his name, Mordechai Eliyahu was on a visit, and the Rebbe said that Yidden have already done tshuva, and the whole Klal has already done enough tshuva. There's been enough things that have happened. And the tshuva that's been done is enough. There's a limud schus godel. Our Klal Yisrael was that must peak Ligolatam. It's enough that David should take more out of the Golas. The whole thing, there's a whole piece there of people not some left to what the Rebbe said. And then the Rebbe said, all we need is the Rabbanim should paskin. So we need a big group of Rabbanim that they should paskin, that the Klal Yisrael has already done tshuva or not. There's a lot of people who are not aware of it. A lot of people sort of sweep it under the carpet. Just be careful. The Rebbe was a little bit, cuckoo. Yeah. But to be careful not to record him too much. But that's what he said. So there's a big Yisrael now. It's big, but there's some Rabbanim want to get going. They want to. The Rabbanei Chabad should come out with a cruise. That everybody's done tshuva, and that's enough. And it's enough now that there should be the gula of the pashtas and the Rabbanim paskin that kach tzarik liyos. And the difficulty is that not all the Rabbanim want to go for it. It's a very strange situation we find ourselves in. It's difficult. People sort of say, well, look, the Rebbe said these things, but he said them, we can't really know. Who knows? It's just a mamish shachor gaviloa. That's what the Rebbe said. He said to this Mordechai Eliyahu, he said that that's enough to be girl, so it's enough. And then he said to him as he was leaving, he said, Ani avoy. So he said, Moshe Bachshav, Efu Korav Iyar. So the Rebbe said, Ani mi harishonim she'yavo לירושלים, ואני אבוא לבקר את כבודו בבייסי בירושלים. The Rebbe said, I'll come to visit you in your house in Jerusalem. He said, whoa. he said, הרבי יבוא לבקר, ברוך הבא, even out of his kelim. Well, the Rebbe didn't say these things, just everything he said he meant. And in reference to that, the Eibusher, Anoichi, 2 times Anoichi, Moiche Pishoecha, Lema'ani, for my sake, meaning for Etzem, Ein Seif Lamayla Mikol, Oilem es afilu van Hatzilas, Liyeish Apagam Nogea, Gam Beprinas Das Elyon. Lazoish, Tzorik Leish, I'm Shocha Beprinas Anoichi, Shalideze, Mismalim, Kolape, Pegamim. So that's what the Rebbe said. The Rebbe said, B'diuk that. The Rebbe said that all the Pegamim have been Mismalim. So we don't see it, but the Taisus, you gotta look like a Rebbe. You gotta look the way the Rebbe looks. And the Rebbe then said to Mordechai Eliyahu, he said that he had not been through such enough, such. He was hinting at the Shoyah and all these there's never been in the whole annals of the world, such unbelievable nisyonos and suffering. It's a matter, they said, there's no doubt in anybody's mind that every year has been Mahara Hiro Tshuva. Every year wants to do something, he wants to be Torah and Mashu. To make sure that should never be again. But not only that they should reach the Shleimus of the Olam, which will automatically prevent that anything should ever be like that. A klal, I feel about, behira bialma. We're talking about tziyah. And it's absolutely not about it that we're holding mamish in the Safak Yura. Mamish holding the Safak Yura. And the Rebbe said, the Rebbe came out the whole union of the Hem Shchaim base, and the Rebbe said he wants to be Megad the Hem Shchaim base. And then after that, that's when the Rebbe had Rachmon in Islam. They were shown after that's when he had the heart attack, not Rosh Hashanah. And the Rebbe said that he's been Megad, Pnimius for Seydus HaTorah, that he needs, everybody should take responsibility together with him. But the Taitz is because in the Hem Shchaim base, everything is written over. If you look carefully over there, you can see that Mamish, the Rebbe Rashab is being misnavi in the Nevuah as to what's going to be, what's going to happen. It's going to be Gilei Lakus Lamata, and that's what we're holding by, that everybody's got to realize that we're going towards Gilei Lakus Aki Otzim. And the world can't take that so easy, and therefore it fights against it. So we're going to be sure that we're not the ones who fight against it. We're going to be the ones who say, But if the Rebbe said, Yidden have done Shua, and I have to come to you, that's what's going to be. Ein mal a sot bitte. And those are the pshat. Onoi here, onoi, does it pnimis v'atmin saint say. So they say, well, in the generation of the Babi, it's nicht gewinnt, as all Sachen, oh, it can't be held. Ain't noch another, there might not be such things, but now there is. And the Rebbe said, that's what's going to be. I did learn here all just to just believe what Kabbalah said. Okay, so we'll just be kind of the old cloud that you never finish but you always begin. The Siyata Dishmaya, yeah. Yomim HaRishonim Chag HaSukkos Reish Samech Tes. That means not Tavke Yontif, Yom, well, maybe Yom Yontif Sheni. Ushavte Mayim Besosain Mimayne HaYeshua Freilach. It's written over there, like you say in Abdullah. Hina Keri Shosi Abtafalev Chodki. Ozi was in Ratzkosev. Vayhi Lili Shua. That's what in these psukim in Yeshaya Novi. Ushavte Mayim Besosain Mimayne HaYeshua. All of psukim written over there after the other. Yeshaya Novi Perik Yud Bey. And so that's an amazing thing that you're going to draw water with simcha from the well springs of Yeshua. It's amazing. So look over there and you'll see the most amazing thing. I mean, Mamish, and the Rebbe brings it in Iron Base. In Iron Base, the Rebbe brings it. You look over there, your eyes will jump out. Rashi says, Shabtim Mayim Besosin. Rashi says, is Tilmudu Ulpana Chados. But it means that you will learn a new type of learning. Ulpana means in Aramic. In Russian, Aramic it means learning. Chados is Chadash. You're going to learn a new type of learning altogether. And then he says, Mimayna Yeshua, says Rashi is from the Oimik HaMayon Shel Seides V'Rozi HaTorah. There steht dort Rashi. So Kumtais is Shaft of Mayim Besosim Mimayna Yeshua means there's going to be a moment where it's all going to start coming up out of the ground and you're going to be drawing it in great water. You're going to be drawing a whole new way of learning, a whole new way of understanding. Yeah, Mimayna Yeshua, where they're all coming from the Seides and the Rozim of the Torah. Look at over there, see, I'm not joking. As they state in Rashi. Rashi's Pshuta Shel Mikra. So we see it has to be Besosin. It's got to be with Mayandike. Yeah, with Mayandike Simcha. And they come in everyone looks at me like they're breathing the last or something. What's with you guys? Young fellas. You should be beaming. I've been learning a few hours a day. Give a cook. Now's the time in life we get a chaparine. Later when you're a big balabas, I don't think Mashiach's going to let anybody be a big balabas. But anyway, whatever, you've got to put your feet up and, puff away at a cigar and maybe drink a good city vodka or something. But nowadays, you got to, have karaychap, you have to, how do you call it? Mimayna Sosei. V'isha b'Yerushalmi. So you might say, oh, Rashi, what's Rashi going around with all this business about Pnimis HaTorah and Rozim and Seides? So it's written in the Yerushalmi, and Tosfos brings it right at the beginning of that parak in the Masechta Sukkah. That's the beginning Parak HaCholil, the last parak of Masechta Sukkah. You guys have got the Gemara Sukkah in your hands. You can take a look. Yeah, it's a Tosfos at the beginning of Masechta Perek HaCholil, and Tosfos says, "Shahoyu shoyevim misham ruach hakodesh." What does it mean? Shatim mayim b'sosein. What does the simcha space hashoy eiva? The simcha that they used to draw. So Tosfos says that when they would draw in the mayim, and they draw it to bring and pour it on them as bad, they themselves were shoyev ruach hakodesh, and they were kilu mazachet the whole Klal Yisrael, the whole Klal Yisrael drew, with the water they drew ruach hakodesh. And V'torek lahovin lama Lama hoye shoyv in ruach hakodesh davke benutze nitzach hamayim. Why would I shoyv? This whole inyan for ruach hakodesh davke by drawing water and pouring water onto me mizbeach. Yeah, loy benitzuch hayayin shoye kol hashon. And the yayins are much more freiliche Sache. Water, just push it to water. Yeah. Ich kam zu glauben, was Gott hat die Manien besossen, da ihnen asossen, was sie beschreibt bei Jahren. Du musst Samech Elikim wer, no sie makes freilich ihm der Malachim and the Menschen, as a botan the posse. How is it bei Manien and a simple goire. Warum nehmen kann und schafft Manien besossen. What are the push to sagen? What is the push to water? Jahren is a thing that makes people frailer. Mesameach, Anashim, Vanosim, Elokim, Vanosim. Jahren macht frailer. You got to be careful. There's only machen zu frailer. Aber von uns macht frailer. Schaut Mayim, Besossen, und darf you with that, nicht so, the Mayim, they got Rucha. What is he doing? And Jesus brings out there, B'Shem Yerushalmi, that Yoina ben Amitai, that Yoina Novi, that he got his Navua from the Nisuch HaMayim. That by being present, the Nisuch HaMayim, he was there to his Navua, and that's how he became a Novi. Sorry, was you have a kasha? Wait a minute. There was written Ruach HaKodesh, and now you tell me that he became a Novi. Now, isn't Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah too in your name? So, at the end of the Maimah, we talk about it. So, somebody would say, the end of the Maimah, what do you ever hold by end of my Maimah? You always hold in the middle. It's the end. Anyway, please see nobody had any kashas of that nature. And, es soll sein, mit gewaltiger Slache und die Iken besossen auf Simcha, und die Ike, Sisu, Besimcha Sagiul.